one of the things that people don't know how to do is the whole job piece, right? So, of course, at the Black Business School, we believe that ownership is the way for our community to have long-lasting financial freedom or just freedom and legacy for their families. But not everyone's willing to take that risk yet, right? So that's ultimately where we want to get everyone to go. But not everyone's there. So for those individuals looking for that global career job, how do they go about finding that?
Oh, that's such a loaded question. It's actually goes back, it goes right back to that experience piece that you want, right? Once you craft that vision, I want to experience these types of things, then you figure out what country is actually going to serve that experience. And then you say, okay, now what do I need in terms of like money? Like, so Colombia, for example, if I know I can get a nice one bedroom for 800 bucks, okay, I still got to think about like my other financial obligations. Okay, now you can understand how much do you need when you're like negotiating salaries. Now, here's the thing that people often don't think about. Some countries are just not great for expat jobs simply because of like currency exchange, right? Mm-hmm. So like in Thailand, for example, you're probably not going to find a job that's the same level of like making like $70,000 or $80,000. It's not impossible, but it's not likely simply because their currency is so much lower. And so you really have to think about, like, I advocate, once you know how much you need, both to, you know, live and to save and to invest and to thrive and all those pieces, well, then you can then start to look at like the options of what you're already doing, the experience you already have. How can you take that to a global stage? And sometimes it won't exist, right? For example, like if you're a lawyer, you probably have to pass the bar in another place as well. So you have to ask yourself, are you married to the idea of being a lawyer your whole life? Mm-hmm. If you're a doctor, it depends on what their board certifications are. I know there's like Doctors Without Borders and they'll prepare you for those types of things, but it's like, are you very married to what you're doing? And if that's the case, we need to think about like, if you find a job, like you're not going to find a job as a doctor in Rwanda paying you six figures in your US dollars. You're just not. And so then it becomes, okay, am I willing to take that pay cut? Can I afford to without significantly, like you can probably live a great lifestyle, but again, we want to think about like, I still want to build wealth and I still want to create additional income. So then I say, think about what you can create on your own in addition to whatever job that you do take. I remember when I did get that job offer in Dubai, at the time, social media wasn't a thing. At the time, I believe I was like 24, 25. And I really didn't know that you can, and by that, I didn't have the support systems and the tribe to understand that you can create your own like additional income. And so when I'm offered like a moderate salary where I would have barely been getting by, I was like, no, I'm going to turn that down because I'm not going to move to just like scrape by.
Right.
Now I wish my 32-year-old self would have said to me, like, you can start your own consulting business online. Mm-hmm. Didn't know that. Right. I kind of had these notions of like, how do I do that if I'm not in one place? How do I do that just from online? We didn't have things like webinars back then. If we did, I didn't know about them, right? Mm-hmm. Like the internet was not as evolved. There wasn't as much exposure to people doing things for themselves as it is now. And so I always say, like, look at the money you need and then go after a certain job, look at that country, and then say to yourself, like, okay, am I willing to create, you know, additional income for myself? And, you know, the answer can always be yes. And it just depends on what that looks like. I try to stay away from things that require inventory, right? And with things like drop shipping, you don't have to think about that. So whether it's an e-commerce site, a t-shirt business, consulting, you always can sell your knowledge, creating online courses. I know you guys teach about all of those different pieces. So the world really is yours. You know, it's just being strategic about it. And then understanding what's best for you. Like, I can't stress that enough. What's best for you? Because for other people, it's like, you're moving. Think about it. What do we know Rwanda to be in terms of like the way the media paints it?
Yeah, Hotel Rwanda. I mean, that's that's
Hotel
specific
Rwanda. It's
genocide. Yeah,
refugees. It's nothing but poverty, and that's what they paint most African countries to be, or most just black, like black countries, islands, just maybe parts of the world. And so I know some people, it's going to be hard to say, I don't want to live in Rwanda, because why? Our preconceived notions are like, wait a minute, it's going to be like this. And all we think about are those like images we've seen and then the reactions that we've gotten from them. Why would you ever move from New York City to Rwanda? Why would you ever leave your corporate 9 to 5 and live in, any third world country? Most people aren't going to understand that. However, it doesn't matter.
Right. Yeah. And even the language that we use to describe countries as third world and
Right.
emerging and those kinds of things is putting those countries in a particular type of box too. And I still do it because I don't know a better way to do it yet. But it's something that I do think about in terms of the language that we use to talk about these particular countries. We had a question from our moderator, Dual Victory, in terms of dealing with language barriers. Have you seen that to be a struggle with people that you work with in terms of what about learning this new language?
Absolutely. I'll share my own story. When I moved to France, I had never visited there. I went sight unseen. So I guess I do like adventure, right? But for me, it was like, okay, I got into this amazing grad school program, and the school is the American University of Paris, and they taught in English. And so I was like, all right, at least I'll be able to understand my classes. And then I said from there, like, I understand the kind of learner I am in terms of language. It's very easy for me to comprehend language. My language comprehension skills are like this. My language speaking skills, they don't come so easily. So like in terms of an accent and in terms of pronunciation, and what my French friends would talk to me online and they were like, your French is so great. And I was like, don't ask me anything in person. Yeah. So I personally struggled with like learning the language, but I challenged myself and said, start with what you're good at, which is understanding the language. And that really helped me navigate the country and have great experiences. And, there would be times where I would like push to say certain phrases and they were like, well, do you mean this? And I was like, yeah, that's what I meant. Grammar in foreign languages, that doesn't come easy to me either. I've made jokes to friends before and they were like, you should manage my career. And I was like, as long as you don't mind an agent that can only speak in present tense. So it's like, if that's a big thing for you, start with the English speaking countries. And if it's not necessarily just English speaking, where there's a heavy English speaking population, right? And that's part of the research. In places like Thailand, it's a heavy English speaking population in terms of, that's where you'll see like digital nomads, expats, very cosmopolitan places. In places like Paris, like, of course, everyone is speaking French, but there's enough people that know enough English where you can get by as you learn the language, right? And so it really is, you immerse yourself in it. And most of all, like you learn from people that like are kind of on your same wavelength and age. And then it's also trial and error, like really understanding what's best for you. I have a friend that did a program and I think he learned to be fluent in like 6 months. And it's like, it's easy to be like, yeah, but that's him. Well, before you say that, try it out. There's a lot of programs out here that you can do before you don't have to wait till you get there. There's programs that you can do where you just like go into chat rooms. I call it a chat room intentionally, not the old school version of it. And you're actually like, okay, I want a language exchange partner, right? And so start now. Instead of waiting, just start now. With everything else in life, it's 80% of it is showing up, right? Start now before you're like, well, I don't have the money to move yet. Okay, cool. While you're creating that wealth building plan, while you're creating that online business, you can absolutely spend 30 minutes a day learning new words. Something that helped me a lot. I remember back then, Sex and the City was still popular. And because I had already watched all of it, I then watched it in French with English captions. And I was like, oh, now I know all these words that were now just like conversational English that I wouldn't have learned anywhere else.